Good morning, dear students. So today we will be discussing on mistake of fact, which is enumerated under section 76 and 79 of IPC. Now, we all know it comes within general exceptions of IPC. So, how a particular mistake can be regarded as a defense or an exception to an act or omission which is penalized under law. Now, there are some exceptions, we do agree, but it is up to the court whether to appreciate that particular uh, defense or not. Now, for example, we can take an example of this particular mistake of fact from a particular scene from the epic Ramayana. Now, of course, as the name suggests, it should be a mistake as to the facts and circumstances of what it is happening. Now, all of you may be knowing about the story of Ahalya. Ahalya was the wife of Rishi Gautam, and there is a particular scene where Gautam curses Ahalya to be a stone, a sculpture, and it is way after years after when Ram comes to that particular place, and uh, after that she regains to her normal posture or normal life. Now, what happened there was Ahalya was a very beautiful woman, and Lord Indra was having a fascination towards Ahalya. But he knows Ahalya is wife of Gautama Rishi. So, uh, what he did was he every day he knows the habit of Gautam. That is, Gautama goes for Surya Namaskar as and when the sun rises. So on that particular day, there was a dealing. He went and he means Indra went to sun god and moon, and they had an agreement of making some adjustment regarding sunrise uh, and all. So it happened, and under the presumption that it is morning, Gautam went for Surya Namaskar as usual. By that time, what happened is Indra came by taking Gautama's form, and he deceived Ahalya. And now Ahalya thought he was her husband. Finally, they both of them were caught by Gautama, and Gautam cursed Ahalya. Now Ahalya pleaded for that. See, there was a mistake from my part because I thought it was you, and such and such thing happened. There was actually a mistake of fact, but what happened? It was denied, and she was cursed by Gautama. Now that is something which happened in those periods. Now we will come to this aspect as far as our law is concerned, that is IPC is concerned. Now, uh, so we know as it comes under general exception, we know it is what it is an excuse. So now, since it's an excuse, what happens is now it precludes the mens rea. Now we know that for an act to constitute an offense, of course, there should be an act, and it should be accompanied by a guilty mind. So mens rea is something which deals with this guilty mind. So if there is a mistake in the facts and circumstances of the surroundings where these particular things are being done, of course, it definitely precludes the requisite mens rea of that particular crime. Now, when we go through the textbook of criminal law of Glanville Williams, he gives an example by which was given by Michael Foster. Now the example is this: a man before going to church fired his gun and left it empty. But during his absence, somebody else went out shooting with the gun and while keeping it back, left it loaded. The owner late in the same day took up the gun again and in doing so touched the trigger. The gun went off and killed his wife. So there's a gentleman. Now he wants to go to church, and before going to church, what he did was he took his gun and he fired it, and he left it empty. He went to the church. Meanwhile, some other person came. He took this gun. He went out and for shooting, and after that, he kept back this gun loaded. Now, of course, when this man A went to the church, he clearly knows the gun was not loaded. So the fact that gun was loaded later was truly unknown for as far as this particular A is concerned. So when he came back, now when he was maybe he might be trying to put it at the right place, somehow for unfortunately the trigger was touched and it was fired, unfortunately killing his wife. Now, since there is in all the aspect, even if we take a narrow sense of doubt also, there is a reasonable grounds to believe that gun was not loaded as far as A was concerned. Therefore, there is a mistake of fact as far as A was concerned, and he was acquitted. So the mistake should be with regard to the material facts, that is the facts which constitute the crime. Now every crime has got its elements, so facts must be in tune with this particular elements of the crime or offense. So uh, there is another example of an Indian case. It's a very old case of 1951 where Supreme Court has seen something like that. It was King Emperor versus Tustipada Mandal. Now, as I said, it's a very old case. Now, what happened is this. Now, as far as see this, the entire slide is very big because the facts and dates are very much important as far as trying to conceive the mistake or the change in factual situations are concerned, thereby resulting in the mistake of facts. Now, what happened in this particular case was, now all the respondents, they belong to a particular district called Budwan, and it was in the province of Bengal. Now, the offense that was charged against them was attempting to transport 21 bullocks from the province of Odisha in contravention of Clause 3 of Odisha Livestock Control of Movement and Transactions Order 1917. Now we see to the actual facts. Now they were passing through Dharmashala. Now that is a district in Cuttack with this 21 cattle purchased on different dates. So it is not that 21 of the cattle was purchased on a single date, it was purchased on different dates and at two from different districts of Odisha. Okay, now so they need to transport this to Budwan. Now, under these circumstances, they were prosecuted and sentenced to pay a fine of 51 each, and 21 bullocks were seized and forfeited to the government of Odisha. Now, there was a change in circumstances in all these dates. Okay. Now, what happened is what High Court took as that. Now, Government of India's letter addressed to all provisional governments, the respondents had reasons to believe bona fide that under the laws then prevailing, there is no imposition of the movement and transportation of cattle from Odisha across its borders. So, as we said, there was an order, and the violation of that order brings them into this particular offense. Now, as far as they were concerned, when they started their traveling, from those provinces. They collected cattle from different places, from different on different days. There was no such restrictions as it has been imposed today at that time. So there was no restriction of this transportation and in across the borders. So so what happened is, actually, with the lapse of Defense of India Act, the various orders passed by the provisional government controlling movement and transport of livestock had also been lapsed. Now, as these orders were derived from the rules formed under the Act, that was Defense of India Act, but Government of Odisha considered it was expedient in the interest of the community of Odisha that the said restriction must continue to exist, and thereby Orissa legislature passed a law accordingly and received the assent of Governor General on 28 to 1970. But it was published. Now, as we have seen, in order to know the law, that we will consider while discussing mistake of law. So the law, why somebody is presumed to know law, is because of its particular character of being published. Published means in official gazette. Whether we have access to official gazette, Indian gazette, or not is a different matter of question. But when it is in gazette is in public domain, everybody has the access to this particular thing. So it is presumed when it got published in the gazette, everybody knows it. Now these dates are very important. Now, so it was enacted, it got the assent on 28 February 1917, but it was published in Gazette only in the month of April. Now, what happened in 3rd of March of is that the Secretary to Government of India has addressed to all provisional governments that with the lapse of Defense of India Act, various orders passed under these shall cease to be operative. Now, following this letter, Director of Agriculture Bengal wrote a memo stating there is no restriction on inter-provisional movement of cattle. The respondents belonged to Bengal, and they, upon the good faith, believed this position and did the act. It was stated by the court, where the fact is unknown to the accused, his conduct must not be taken into the intention with regard to it. So you see the date, though it got the assent in February, it was published in what we say in the month of April. Now, what happened in the month of March was there is nothing like this, because the Parent Act itself has ceased to be operative. So anything which comes from the Parent Act doesn't have any operation at all. But since there was a peculiar situation as far as the Odisha government was concerned, so they need to extend these particular things. So they had a particular thing. So, but still there was a letter dated on this particular March, and the secretary thereby informing that there is no such restrictions, and believing on such things, all these things happened as far as those farmers were concerned. And since these people truly doesn't have any knowledge about the fact, so thereby you cannot deduce the intention of the crime that of the act that constitutes the crime. So there should be zero chance of knowing on something about the change in factual situation, because here when they started things were different, and when they entered the things were totally different, and in between many things happened which will never come to the knowledge of it as far as normal person is concerned. So that particular aspect where the person is truly unknown of the fact, it should not be regarded as the intention of doing a particular crime. So such cases are there. And now, as far as Section 76 is concerned, as I told, there are two aspects of mistake of fact. One is mistake of fact, where act done by a person bound, or by mistake of fact believing himself bound by law. An aspect of bound by law, okay, and the other one was authority of law. Now, if we go into this, If we go to the section 76, nothing is an offense which is done by a person who is or who by reason of mistake of fact and not by mistake of law in good faith believes him to be bound by something he is doing, and due to the mistake of this particular fact he has the true intention, he believes that this is something which he is legally bound to do. So there are two parts, as I said. First part is which that person believes himself to be bound by law. Now that particular thing can be illustrated. That is, as A is a soldier, he fires on a mob by the order of his superior officer in conformity with the commands of law. He has committed no offense. So there is something. A is a soldier, and as far as the military laws or particular things are concerned, he is bound by the orders of the superior officer. So here, superior has commanded to fire, and there is a situation where the fire is needed. So what happened is the superior ordered for firing, and the soldier fired, of course, causing injuries or death. So here there is something like that. So he does something in conformity with the order. So he thinks that he is bound by law. Okay. Now the second one. Now what happened is what happens. A is the person doing an act. Now the soldier does an act. Now what is his act? He fires on the mob. And why he fired? Because of the order from the superior, and that too in good faith. Because as far as he was concerned, there is an order from the superior officer, and he doesn't have any malicious intention. That is that let the order comes, and in the backyard of this particular order I will do something else. No, nothing like that. He was doing his duty. He was ordered to fire by his superior authority. He acted in good faith and he fired, and he acted in conformity with the order. So there is no offense. Now there is another part to that 76, that is, nothing is an offense which is done by a person who by reason of mistake of fact and not by reason of mistake of law in good faith believes himself to be bound to do it. Now see, there is an element that there is a mistake of fact, and the section clearly expressly denies that if it is a mistake of law, this provision won't attract. So there is a mistake of fact, and still in good faith he believes that he is bound to do. Now here what is this? A, an officer of court, by the order of the court to arrest Y, arrest Z, believing him to be Y. After making due inquiry, A has committed no offense. Now as I said, now there is a warrant being issued by the judicial first class magistrate court. Now warrant is directed to a particular police officer. Now the person who is to be arrested is Y. Now he went, because the warrant contains all the address and requisites of particular person to be arrested, that is Y. Now he went, he cannot find Y. When he asks and he gets the details from all the nearby people, he forms of an opinion that that particular person is Y, but actually that particular person is some other person. So he makes due inquiry, and upon that inquiry, there is some mistake being happened. Then after taking due diligence and all, he is of the opinion that particular person is that particular person is Y, who needs to be arrested. So instead of Y, what he does is he arrests Z. So there is a mistake of fact, and there is a good faith, because suppose if this policeman and this particular Z has some personal grudge, then there will be something very fishy. Now where there is nothing like that, he believes in his good faith that that person is the exact person that who needs to be arrested, and he goes and arrests him. Then because there is an exception, that is a mistake of law. So there is something he's bound to do. Of course, if the court directs a particular police officer or any person to execute a warrant, it is his duty to execute it. So he is legally bound to execute it. Now, while doing so, there is a mistake of fact, and the particular thing was done under good faith. So he will get the exception under section 76. Now, discussion on 79 we will do in next class. So till then, we will just stop for a while.